Today we're going to be talking about diets. Now, diets are a very, very popular way to, help yourself or help your child. Before we get into it, what I want to do is start out with the coupon. So those of you who are waiting for the coupon for this weekend is Diet 20. So Diet 20 is going to get you 20% off anything on SpectrumAwakening.com, the supplements, the lab testing. The only thing it does not work for are the bundles, which are already 25% off or more. That does expire this Sunday, January 31st. If you are interested in telemedicine appointments with me, give our office a call, 203-265-0444. If you have a question about your order, you've got to email, can't call. If you got a question about your order, email customer service at SpectrumAwakening.com. Okay, great. So let's talk about diets. Now, the first and most important thing to say about diets is there is no one diet for everyone, all right? And that makes this very, very frustrating. It makes this very, very challenging because there is no one answer. And so, you hear about these things like, oh, we tried a gluten-free, dairy-free diet and my child is recovered and neurotypical. And there are other people say, boy, we did this diet for a year and nothing changed. So what do we do with all of that? And it's really important, again, to understand there is no one solution for everyone. There is no one diet that's best for everyone. You've got to be flexible, you've got to be patient, and you've got to experiment. So we're going to be talking about some of them and how to guide yourself, your family, to figure out which one's better for your child. So first thing I want to talk about is, why do we need to go on these diets? Okay, why can't I just eat anything I want and be totally fine? Okay, the answer is our body does not do well with every single food out there on the planet, okay? Some of us do well with certain foods, and not with others, and other people do well with those foods and not with others, and again, there's almost infinite different permutations of what foods are good for you or not good for you. That is because you may have a food allergy, a food sensitivity, and a food intolerance. Now, please understand there are many differences between those three, and I want to walk you through them. A food allergy, okay, is very well understood. People will eat a food and our body reacts to it with a certain type of immune system reaction called IgE. IgE is associated with food allergy. So you may have an allergy to dairy products. You may have an allergy to strawberries or to shellfish or to peanuts or to gluten, okay? You can have a myriad of allergies. That is going to create histamine in your body. Histamine can cause typical allergic symptoms like scratchy throat, red skin, but it can also cause other things such as insomnia and hyperactivity. Histamine can affect the brain and cause those symptoms. So you could have that. You can figure out if you have food allergies either by getting a blood test that looks at these IgE levels, or by going to an allergist and getting the little needles, like 1,000 little needles, and figure out which one swells, okay? So that's how you can test your food allergies, all right? The next level below that is a food sensitivity. Now, this one's a little bit more controversial because most of conventional medicine doesn't believe in food sensitivities. They only believe in food allergies, but that's not the case, okay? Food sensitivities exist. And what's the difference between food allergy and food sensitivity? It's the part of the immune system that causes the reaction. So instead of an IgE reaction for an allergy, you get an IgG reaction. IgG is an antibody that creates different symptoms in your body. Those symptoms can be behavioral, they can be gastrointestinal, they can cause inflammation throughout your body, okay? So these IgG markers will help analyze food sensitivities. Last thing is a food intolerance. Now, food intolerance is basically a digestive issue. So you may be lactose intolerant, all right? Which means you cannot digest milk sugar, you get a big bloated belly, you get stomach pain, you get diarrhea or constipation when you have lactose, which is the sugar in milk. You can also be sensitive to digesting other foods like beans. A lot of people can't digest beans, all right? They eat beans, they eat green beans, they eat soy, big bloated belly, lots of pain, yada, yada, all right? So you can be food intolerant. You may be able to not digest all sorts of things, including lactose, including gluten, and anything else is possible. Now, one thing I talk to a lot of families about is you can have any of these three: food allergy, food sensitivity, food intolerance to each and every food. You may have one of those, you may have two of those, you may have all three of those, all right? A lot of people will talk to me and say, oh, well, we know we're dairy intolerant, we're lactose intolerant, so I have lactate milk, okay? Lactate milk doesn't have the milk sugar, but it still has the milk protein. So you could still be allergic to it. You could still be sensitive to it because allergies and sensitivities work on the protein of the food, not the sugar of the food. All right. So I hope that kind of helps go through the different ones: food allergies, food sensitivities, food intolerances. You could have problems with any or all of them. All right. And the only answer is to remove them from your diet, or that's the most effective answer. Remove them from your diet, and then they won't cause a problem. So we're not, every child, you never know how much is contributing to which symptoms until you try something. So I think that's the next thing I want to talk about, is that these diets, they're hard. Okay? Yeah, they're a challenge, especially a kid who's stubborn, especially a kid who has food sensitivity issues or taste and texture sensory issues. These diets are a challenge, okay? Nobody will ever say that these things are easy, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do everything for your child, because you never know what kind of response you're going to get until you do the diet, okay? You just never know. They're hard to do. One of these days, you're going to buck up and you're going to try it, okay? We do it in my family, we do it with my daughter. In fact, I chose to do this diet Facebook Live because right now our family is on a cleanse, and so we have a very restricted food. This is day 3 of my restricted food. I'm doing a very vegetarian, zero grain type of diet, okay? So yeah, it's a challenge, it's work, but you're going to do it. You're going to try it, and you're going to try it for your kids, and hopefully it helps. Now, here's some guidance into different diets that are out there. Now, very common one is gluten-free, dairy-free. Okay, that's probably the most common in the autism biomedical world. Okay, something that everybody should try. We'll talk about, maybe we can do some testing to figure out which foods you may want to try first. Okay, so that's definitely something that is very common out there. If these diets are a challenge for you, what I would recommend is picking one food at a time. All right. So like, hey, I want to do gluten-free, dairy-free. Whoa, that's a lot. Let's pick one. Let's pick dairy, or let's pick gluten. Okay. Do one food at a time. Get it under control. When you decide to take a food out of your diet, do one meal at a time. All right. Here's breakfast. What do I eat for breakfast that has gluten in it? Okay. Well, my pancakes and my waffles and my French toast and some cereals. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. What am I going to replace that with? Okay. Gluten-free oatmeal. There's a bazillion gluten-free cereals. What I tell my patients is going gluten-free. The gluten-free foods may not taste good, all right? Some of them do, some of them don't. But go with foods that are naturally gluten-free. Potatoes, corn, rice. These are grains that are naturally gluten-free, and you're used to those tastes. Rice Krispies, no gluten, okay? Not the healthiest cereal, but you get my point. I can have something that is known, is common, is typical, but still naturally gluten-free, all right? You gotta watch out for anything that are grains. So you get my point. Pick one food at a time and then conquer one meal at a time. And that's how you're gonna get into this diet. Now, there are other diets out there that are very popular and very effective as well. Ketogenic is another one. We're going to be talking about, looking at a couple research studies about a ketogenic diet, all right? Some people do really well on a specific carbohydrate diet, which is basically eliminating most grains, all right? So that's really good too. Also, some people do poorly on oxalate foods. Some people do poorly on histamine foods. Some people do poorly on phenol foods, all right? How do you figure out what's going to work? Well, there's 2 ways to go about this. You first choose a diet that doesn't have those foods or has a very low level of those foods and see what happens. How does your child change? Or you can reverse engineer it, all right? We did this with our daughter who, for those of you who've been listening to my Facebook Lives know our daughter had a lot of sleep problems, and we would always notice certain days had worse sleep and worse behavior. And we just looked, we journaled all the foods and said, okay, what did she eat that day, all right? She ate X, Y, and Z that day, but on this day she didn't, and she had a better day. So you can reverse engineer it, all right? Turns out for our daughter, it turns out to be salicylate foods, which is part of the, I can't even remember the diet. It's an older, Feingold. The Feingold diet back in the 80s, for ADHD, that low salicylates in the foods would help certain kids. So you can either pick a diet and go for it or reverse engineer it. All right. But honestly, the only way to guide you as to which diet is going to be best is either trial and error, pick a horse and run with it and see what happens, or doing the allergy and the sensitivity testing. So allergy testing you can get, with your PCP, through a blood test or with the allergist. Food sensitivity tests, okay, a little different. You usually got to work with other labs to do those. We have food sensitivity IgG testing on our website. So if you're interested in that, this is what you're going to get. This is a copy of an example of a lab result. This is going to look at about 30 different foods, and it'll tell you which foods you are not sensitive to, mildly, moderate, or severely sensitive to. So this person, a little sensitive to almond and mustard and strawberries, and moderate to milk and peanut, and severe to egg. So it gives you the idea of like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should try a diet without these foods. There is no test that's going to tell you this food is causing this symptom. That's where the trial and error is. We stop that food and you see what improves. All right. So that's how we got to work through this stuff. So if you're interested in a food sensitivity IgG test, you can try this one on our website, or if you're working with other docs, get a test through them. Don't forget, if you are going to get it through our website, use the coupon so you can get 20% off. Okay, so what next? Let me work into a little scientific research and then go and answer all your live questions, or as many as live questions we can get within the hour. So here's a research study. This is the effect of gluten-free diet. Oop, got to turn my phone off before I Facebook Live. Excuse me. Don't mind that case of beer behind me. That was a wonderful present from our genetic sales rep. So we've got a gluten-free diet in kids with autism. Hold on, I finally found my cheaters. Let's put these on for all the small print. We've got this test was 6 weeks of a gluten-free diet, and gastrointestinal symptoms decreased significantly, okay? And also a significant decrease in behavioral disorders. What did increase significantly was GI symptoms increased in those in the regular diet group, but GI symptoms improved and behavioral symptoms improved with the gluten-free diet when they did it for 6 weeks in this research study, okay? Here's another research study that talks about ketogenics. This is a ketogenic diet, which is basically no carbs, just protein and fat. Just, hey, who wants 5 pounds of bacon a day? Let's go. Okay, that's ketogenic, all right? Significant improvement after 3 months in different autism symptoms on 3 months of a diet. Now, the ketogenic diet is also highly recommended for those with seizures. So if you do have a child with epilepsy or seizures, ketogenic diet is the first one you should try. All right. Next, this is a research study that failed, and I want to talk about why I think it failed. This is a gluten-free, casein-free diet, double-blind with autism, did not have any significantly improvements in symptoms of behaviors or autism symptoms. But the problem in this, I believe, is the timing, all right? This was 4 to 6 weeks, all right? 4 weeks isn't enough time. 4 weeks isn't enough time, especially with gluten, to figure out what symptoms you've got. You gotta do this for at least 2 months before if you decide this is good or bad, okay? The other research study was 6 weeks, the other research study was 3 months. You can't give somebody, let's say we're testing a cholesterol drug and like, hey, I gave you 1 dose of Lipitor, and your cholesterol didn't go down, okay? You've gotta make sure you do something for the right amount of time before you can analyze and interpret if it is effective. So timing is important as well. Excuse me. All right, next. Well, that's all the research studies I have on the diets. And again, the research is hit or miss. I think the research is hit or miss because there is no one diet for everybody. So if you're looking at kids with autism and not specifying them with different allergy testing or sensitivity testing, just like, hey, everybody gluten-free, not everybody's going to respond. Okay, it doesn't work that way, but some kids will respond dramatically. All right, let me tell you a story. It's a very common, popular story I love, one of my favorite stories. Had a kid, 3 years old, and this has to be going back to like 2009. It was a long time ago. Kind of those, I wonder where he is now moments. So, he was 3 or 4 years old at the time. We decided to go gluten-free. Okay, we did gluten-free for a month, and he started talking. It was awesome. It was nonverbal. Then he started some words. Then Grandma and Grandpa took him to McDonald's. They said, what can we get that's gluten-free? And they went for some French fries, right? Hey, potatoes are gluten-free. Unfortunately, at the time, and I don't know if now, the flavors and the coating on the fries had gluten in them. That day, he stopped talking, okay? It took an entire month again of gluten-free foods to get him back to talking. So the point of the story is that one little piece of the food, if you're that sensitive, will cause problems, okay? As well as how long you have to do the diet to actually see the improvements, all right? And some people can be sensitive to one little speck of the food. Another popular story that I love to tell, had a child who was very, very allergic to dairy. So allergic that he went to his doctor's and he had the appointment right after lunch. The doctor had yogurt for lunch, ate the yogurt, didn't wash their hands, touched the child, and the child had an anaphylactic reaction. So you can be that sensitive. So that is an important thing to do. So again, all these different diets: gluten, dairy, ketogenic, oxalates, phenols, histamines. It's about experimentation. It's about journaling, but it might be the answer out for you guys. All right. So that's kind of my general. Oh, one more thing, and then we'll get to the live questions. You've also got to make sure you're digesting your food. All right. Digesting your food is such an important part for the body to assimilate and react to it. Undigested foods may be more reactive than undigested foods. So does your child chew their food, or do they just pop in a chicken nugget and swallow it whole? Okay. Do you see undigested foods in their poop? Now, things like corn and blueberries, very, very common not be digested, but you see other things in their poop. That can be a sign they're not digesting well. And if so, highly, highly recommend digestive enzymes. Now, there's a lot of digestive enzymes on the market. We've got a couple. I want to show you what we have so you can choose which you're going to get for your child. We have a chewable digestive enzyme. Okay. I like this. It's a very simple formula. It's got 3 enzymes, got papain, amylase, and protease. Simple formula, foundational formula, but it's chewable. Okay, so if you're a kid, you're not going to open up the pills. You've got a chewable digestive enzyme. Tastes like papaya, because papaya is one of the ingredients. The other digestive enzyme we have is a gluten digestive enzyme. This is an enzyme that specifically digests gluten. So if you digest the gluten before it gets to your immune system, you might be able to tolerate the gluten even though you're eating it. Even though you're reactive to it, the enzyme may digest it before it causes a problem. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Again, another story I use a lot was seeing a teenager, neurotypical teenager, and she had arthritis in her knees. She played track and field at high school, okay? She said, hey, I'm in track and field and I'm really good, but man, my knees, I've got arthritis. We did the x-rays, etc., okay? So we did the testing. It turned out she was sensitive to dairy. So we stopped dairy. And in 1 week, her knees felt fabulous. They were pristine. She was running again, but she said to me, hey, you know what? I really like yogurt. I got these Ciabatta yogurts and I dig them and I want them. I said, well, what we're going to do, there are other enzymes that will just digest dairy products, casein and the other proteins. So she was able to take that enzyme with her dairy and it not cause an arthritis problem for her. So in some cases, you can use the enzyme with the food and not have the problem, okay? But I don't recommend doing that first, because if you take the enzyme with the food, you may say, oh, look, there's no problem with, like if you take this gluten enzyme with gluten and nothing gets better, I don't want you to think, oh, there's no problem with gluten because we tried the enzyme. You gotta try the diet to know. You have to try the diet to know. I can't emphasize that enough. If you don't try it, you haven't done it. All right? So, and digestive enzymes work for a lot of kids. Here's a research study, randomized trial of digestive enzymes in children with autism. And I didn't highlight this one. Well, what does it say here? The group receiving digestive enzyme therapy with autism for 3 months had significant improvements in emotions, general behavior, and gastrointestinal symptoms. Let me highlight it for you so you can see it, because I think that is really important. All right. All right. Let's take a read of that. All right. Again, randomized, placebo-controlled trial, digestive enzymes in kids with autism. Digestive enzyme therapy for 3 months had significant improvement in emotions, general impressions of autistic scores, and general behavior and gastrointestinal symptoms. What an easy thing to do, some digestive enzymes with your child, okay? So that's a general, intro into diet. And again, I can't hammer it home enough. Try the diets. Try the diets. Do some testing if you want to. But you've got to try these things out in order to work. And there is no one diet for everybody. You do gluten and dairy free and your child recovers. That's awesome, but it's not going to happen for everyone. But you never know until you try.